Hello, everyone. This is Michael Bean from Foreo, and welcome to our webinar. Over the next hour, we're going to be talking about publishing Excel models for Foreo Epicenter. I see some familiar names on our participants list today, and also some unfamiliar names, which is nice. And for those of you who haven't participated before or know little about using Excel with Epicenter, we're going to go through some of the basics. And for those of you who have some experience using Excel, we're going to go a little bit into some more sophisticated features in terms of how to set up classes and multiplayer and things like that. So our agenda today is first a quick introduction to Foreo Epicenter, explain what it is, and then we're going to look at four simulation examples, three of which we're going to try to recreate or to build sort of versions of during our webinar. And the three things we're going to try to build today are a scenario comparison, or what we also call as run comparison simulation, a single player game, a multiplayer game simulation. And then after we do all that, which is a lot to fit in an hour, but I think we can do it, we'll cover account access, how you can get account access, how you can also experiment with Epicenter. And then we'll provide some suggestions for next steps on how you can get started, as well as answer any questions that you have. We're using Zoom today for our webinar tool, and I believe that on your panel for Zoom, you should have a Q&A area. If you have questions during the webinar, you can type them into the Q&A area. My colleague Amrita is here with me today, and she'll look at the questions and things, and then at the end, we'll go through together and answer some of those questions. Last point I'd like to make is that we're going to be using simple Excel models today to illustrate, but complex models also work well. So, simple models are kind of easier to look at, they're easier to kind of comprehend what's going into them, but we've seen models that have, thousands of cells and equations and things like that that come together to work with them. All right, let's start off and talk about what Foreo Epicenter is. So it's a platform for hosting server-side models, creating interactive interfaces, and sharing insights on web and mobile. So there's a wide variety of different types of models that can be hosted on Epicenter. Obviously, one of them is Excel, but there's other ones as well. And the idea is that you get your Excel model, in this case, loaded into or uploaded to Epicenter, and then you create a interface using a wide variety of tools, but a very popular tool that we're going to be using today is a drag and drop template-based tool for creating interfaces. And then you can make it available. You can have it shared publicly to anyone who wants to look at it. You can also use authentication to control who has access, and you can also do things like create teams of people or worlds where people interact with each other for multiplayer games. The tool, in addition to supporting simulations that are often built with Excel, also supports other kinds of techniques, other things that can be done. You can do statistical analysis, you can do machine learning, optimization, other kinds of analytical models. And to give you a little flavor for that, here are not all, but nearly all of the languages that Epicenter supports. So here, of course, is Excel, the one we're going to be talking about today, but also very popular languages for creating models include Python, R, Julia, Java, and we also support commercial simulation packages. These are what are up here at the top, probably. Maybe some of you are familiar with those, but it's Vensim, Ventity, PowerSim, and Stella. And then, on the bottom here, what we're talking about are sort of the more sophisticated optimization tools and solvers and machine learning tools like TensorFlow. Gurobi is an optimization or solver package, and IBM iLog is Cplex, which is another kind of optimization tool. And there are others as well. There's other sorts of machine learning tools and optimizations that can be supported. All right, so I think the way to start off this is really to look at example simulations and kind of get a feel for what we're talking about with those, the things that I mentioned at the beginning. So, as I said, we can do scenario-based simulations, we can do single-player turn-based games, we can do multiplayer simulations, we can also do calculators. So to kind of illustrate that a little bit, I'm going to start off with this Tesla Powerwall example. This is what I would call a calculator-based tool, and it's used for kind of thinking about energy usage for your house. And it has some nice features, and I think what I like about it is it takes advantage of the fact that it's online for planning this out. And this wasn't built by us, this was built by another organization, but it's sort of a neat example, I think. And what it does is, so if you're familiar with Powerwall, this is one of the things that Tesla offers, where you can buy battery packs that would be installed in your garage or maybe your basement. And if you have solar panels on your roof, they'll store electricity during the day, and then you can use that electricity at night. And so what this tool does is kind of help you think about how many Powerwall units you would need based on your household and so on. And so one of the things you can do with this is kind of dial in the size of your household, the number of people that you have in it. You can also change your energy consumption pattern. So here's like a typical pattern for refrigerator and kitchen use, where you have lots of use at 7 a.m. and then again at 5 p.m. But that can change over the course of the day. And you can also look at things like TV here. And so this household watches a lot of TV in the evening and maybe a little in the morning. But if you want to, you can change that pattern. You can say, you know, I don't watch that much at night, and maybe I watch more, you know, during the morning or something like that, maybe never late at night or something. So you can kind of change that pattern. And what that does then is affect the outcome in terms of your energy usage. So that's sort of a way of dialing that in and kind of working with a model like an Excel spreadsheet to recalibrate things and figure things out. And one of the things that matters a lot in for this topic of, you know, solar panels is their efficiency, and their efficiency changes based on location. And so one of the things that you need to know to figure out how many power walls you need is to know what your latitude is. And so here is the latitude in somewhere in Norway, but I'm not in Norway right now, I'm in San Francisco. If I start to type in my address, you can see it actually recognizes where I am, which is kind of nice. That's based on some things that Google does. And there's where we're sitting right now. I can zoom in, that's the top of the building we're in. Looks like it's fine for solar panels. That was a sunny day here. So that looks pretty good. But more importantly here, what we get out of this is specifically our latitude over here, which then is used to kind of calibrate the rest of the model. And then there's, you know, more that we can get out in terms of energy production, look at high and low periods for the sunniest and least sunny day. I'm gonna blast through this today because I just wanna get to the outcome here, which is sort of a summary of benefits, like how long it will take the investment in the Powerwalls to pay off and things like that, and kind of giving you some background information. So this is an example of a calculator that does some useful things, but that can enhance sort of the control over a spreadsheet. And one of the things that's worth noting here too is that the actual model that was used for this is not available to the end users. The model, if it has proprietary information and things, is sort of inaccessible to end users. All they get is access to the interface. So let's move on to another example. This is a scenario-based tool, and this is the first of the types that we're going to be building today during our webinar. You can see it's both in English and Vietnamese, and it was used as doing some planning for health-related issues in Vietnam. And the idea here with it is that you can create a scenario and then compare scenarios to one another in the tool. So here we see one scenario compared, and I can create a set of assumptions about what I think is going to be happening in the future. So I can put in some assumptions here. I'm just going to change some numbers. And then I can name that scenario. I can say this is my new scenario, for example, and simulate it. And then what I can do is get a new plot of outcomes here and kind of compare. And I can compare it to other runs that might have been done at different times and things like that if I want to do that and sort of see what, you know, other lines might look like on here. And then in addition, I'll have different pages that are available. And one of the nice features of this too is I can remove scenarios that I'm no longer using. So if I don't like, you know, some of these older ones, I can delete them. And then, you know, they'll no longer show up in my outcomes plot anymore if I want it to work that way. So this tool is really used for thinking about the future, putting in assumptions, and then running those assumptions out for multiple years. And what you can see that distinguishes it is what we're doing is it's time-based, but we're kind of making decisions at a point in time and then simulating it forward. So that's one design that we can do. Another design is more of a turn-based game. So this is an example of a single-player turn-based simulation that was built with Harvard Business School on our platform. And it has sort of nice features here in terms of a dashboard overview of results for different types of customers. This is a marketing simulation. You can set prices, you can look at customer purchases and sales. There's a fancy market research report. And the idea in this is you make decisions. You kind of decide on like how much you want to focus on a particular sales team, for example. You can decide on things like how much you want to spend on large customers or retaining retention versus acquisition and so on, and make a bunch of decisions then, and you submit, and then you see the next round. So unlike the previous example, what's happening is we're advancing round by round in this turn-based game, and this is kind of one way of distinguishing a game from sort of a scenario planning tool. So this ability to kind of run this out round by round and see, you know, new results kind of emerge as I change my decisions over time. Okay, so that is a single player simulation. Let's move on to a multiplayer game. This is one that was done around commodity pricing with MIT. And actually what we're going to do today is a version of this game in hopefully about 10 minutes or so. We're going to kind of build a sample of this very quickly. And the way I'm going to do this, so I have a bit of a challenge because I'm one person here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two different windows to kind of play multiplayer here. So you can see here I'm person one and here's person two. So I'm going to go back to person one and log in. And what I'm going to do is play the multiplayer version of this simulation. And here I'm going to call myself Michael and submit. And then I need to pick a table. You can see there's some other people kind of sitting out here waiting for a table, but I don't want to play with them. I want to have someone else here that I want to work with. And I'm going to just sit at my own table, which is table 233. Okay, so here I am sitting at table 233. Now I'm going to go in as if I were another person. And Amrita, if it's okay with you, I'll pretend to be you. Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to go ahead and put Amrita in here, and then I'll do multiplayer and submit. And here now as Amrita, you know, if I were logged in, you know, right now I'm sitting in obviously on one computer, but I could be anywhere in the world, right? And I could be looking at this. I see Michael sitting out here waiting to join, and we could be on the phone or something and say, hey, let's play together. Let's use table 233. And I join now, and now Amrita is connected as well, and the game can start. So let me go back here, and I'm going to start the game over here. And I'll go back to Amrita's board and start her game. And now we're ready to play. And this is the idea of this game, is to kind of think about how pricing can change over time. And the prices start, it's kind of hard to see this, but they start at $30. And what I'm going to do is, as Michael, I'm going to enter $30 and submit my price. And now I'm waiting for the other player. I'm going to go to Amrita, and I'm saying Amrita charges less than me, for example. She's going to enter a lower price and submit. And now because both of us have submitted, the game can advance. And we can see the prices here, and you see Amrita underpriced me. As a consequence, she had higher revenue and greater market share and so on. And then maybe in the next round, you know, I see that Amrita stays at the $26, but then Michael here says, well, if Amrita is going to 26, I'm going to do the same and submit. And now, you know, we kind of see those revenues converging over time. Market share is even again, and our profits have declined. So that's kind of how this game can play out over time. And you can see, you know, you can play, and it's not limited to two. It could be, I think in this game, we can support up to 8 people, but it's really arbitrary. We've seen multiplayer simulations that have 30, 40, 100 people playing together in the same world. But you can see there with the tables too, it can represent different worlds that are available. Okay, so that's a little bit about the types of simulations. And again, what we're going to do today is we're going to build 3 of these quickly, very quickly. The scenario planning tool, the single player style simulation, and even a quick multiplayer game. But before we jump to that, I want to talk a little bit about the ways that people build simulations. And one way that people build simulations is kind of represented by this person, which is kind of like me today. So this person is an individual who maybe doesn't have web design experience. Maybe, you know, he doesn't have a team of people that are working with him. He's just working on his own, and he has a model. He has an idea for a model. Maybe he's built a model in Excel, and he's trying to figure out how to share it online. So we can support this type of user with our platform. And this is a very common and popular type of user that works with this. And it's, like I said, today I'm kind of pretending to be this type of person in here. Actually, I am this type of person in reality as well. But then in addition, you can have a situation where you have a group of people that are producing a simulation that, you know, often is more polished, what we refer to as high production value simulations that are being resold and maybe distributed and have guides and things like that that go with them. And in that case, you might have individuals that specialize in particular areas. So, you know, you might have a UI designer, you might have a modeler who builds the model in Excel, for example, but could build it in something else as well. You have maybe one or more web developers You have QA that's going to be testing the simulation on multiple browsers and things like that. And because you have this team of people that are coming together, you would have a project manager as well. And our platform can also support these kinds of users. And here at Foreo, we actually have teams that are like this that help, our customers and things build models of this style. And to support those two different types of users, again, an individual who wants to do something on it on his or her own, but doesn't have experience building, doesn't have UI design experience, it doesn't have web development experience. We have a set of tools that are available. And if you have teams that have experience with all these things, and want to do, use APIs and things like that directly, we can do that. And the way we handle that is by offering a stack of interface technologies. And the stack starts with interface templates, which are, as you can see here, from the arrow, are the easiest to use. But you can see the downside here, they're the least flexible. And then you can drop down to lower level tools like Flow.js and Epicenter.js, which are JavaScript libraries. And I'd say most people who are modelers but aren't web developers will work with these top two technologies, and probably primarily with the interface templates technology. The web developers, professional web developers, tend to use Epicenter.js as their tools. And we see some people who use these aggregate APIs and base APIs as well. So this stack kind of builds on things below it. So you can drop down to lower levels as you want to, as you become more sophisticated, kind of know more around the platform and things like that. All right, that's our introduction. And for today, what we're going to be doing is focusing on the interface templates. And partly that's to be helpful with respect to the tools that are being used to kind of help understand them. But it's also an interest in time, since we're going to try to build 3 models rather rapidly today. And the way we're going to start this is to build a model. I'm not going to do this for all 3 of our examples today, but for the first, and actually I'm going to use this model that I'm going to build quickly in 2 of the first 3 examples, and then I'll use a new model for the multiplayer game. What I want to do is just quickly build a simple Excel spreadsheet to kind of show you how these things come together, and then we're going to try building that scenario comparison tool, and upload it. And so the way this might start is I want to do a comparison, and what I decided to use today is electric bicycles as my topic. So I'd have time here for my electric bikes, and I might start off in 2019, and what I want to do is simulate that over a few years. So let me bring this out to, let's say, 2025. And then what I would have for my company is bike sales, and I might start off with, let's say, 1,000 bikes that I'm selling, and then I'm going to grow that by a little bit. I'm going to say it grows by 5% per year, and it's going to keep growing over time like this. So there's our bike sales growing at 5% per year. And then what I'm going to have is a price decision, and that price decision is going to be the decision that the end user puts in for their price. I'm going to put that in at $500, and I'm going to just make it equal to that in the future here. Okay. And then I'm going to separate this, and we'll use this later, but I'm going to illustrate this right now, is that the price I'm going to set as equal to the price decision here. So that's kind of a little artifact of something I plan to do in the future. But anyway, from there, what I'm going to do is determine revenue, and revenue would be equal to price times sales. So there you can see, it's $500,000 for this electric bike company, growing to over 650,000 by the 2025. And there might be some costs associated with that. I could have variable costs, which I'm going to say are equal to $250 times the sales here. And that obviously is going to grow because sales grows over time. And then I'm going to also have fixed costs. And I guess what I'll do for that is I'll say it's 200,000 per year. Did I get the right number there? I think so. And I'm just going to keep it at 200,000 throughout the sim. Okay. So then my total costs, let me put this line up here. My total costs are going to be equal to the variable costs plus fixed costs. And my profit, we're almost done. Profit is going to be equal to my revenue minus my total costs. And we're sort of making $50,000, and that grows over time here. Very good. All right. So now we have a model, and I'm going to go ahead and save this. And what I want to do now is make it easy to reference cells in the Epicenter, in the interface that I've created. And the way we do that is to use range names for these things. So right now, these are not range names. If I refer to this, you can see it's going to be B2 through H2. And that's sort of an awkward way to refer to things. It's much nicer if you can refer to things by names. And an easy way to do that in Excel, if you're familiar with it, is you can go to, and it varies a little bit between a Mac or a PC. Obviously, I'm using a Mac right now, but I go to Insert, Name, and then Create on a Macintosh. And again, there's other ways of doing this on a PC. But and then it says Create Names in the left column. And what that does is it'll name these ranges. So now this is named time. You can see that up here on the upper left. And this range name is now revenue. And this one is profit, and so on, right? So these are all named correctly. We also need one other one, which we're going to use later, and this is step, and it determines, what this is used by Epicenter for is to determine the number of steps that you advance when you open the simulation. And initially, what I want to do with this one is have it step 0 times. So I want it to be right at the beginning of the simulation when I run this for my scenario comparison. So I'll do step 0, and I'll do it one more time. Insert, Name, Create, range name left column, which is what I want. I can do that. And now this cell is named step. You can see that there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save that. And we have our model. That's all we need to do to get our model in. So from there, what we want to do is go to Epicenter. And here is Epicenter for me. And let me go to my folder here. I have this is my Sims folder that I'm going to be working on today. And this is what I have here is what's called a team. It's a group of people that can collaborate on working on a sim or an individual. I'll show more of that. Well, let me show a little bit of that right now. So here you can see the members of the team. There's me and one other person at Foreo that are members of this particular team right now. And if I go to the team home, I can see different projects or simulations that I've created here. And I can create a new project, which is I'm going to do now. I'm going to call this my electric bike scenario tool. Or something. That's not a great name, but whatever. And then you can see what it creates here is a URL for me. It's foreo.com/app/sims in this case, and Sims is the name of my team in this case. And then it's electric bike scenario tool. And what I have here are 3 options for how my end users, it could be my people who are playing my game, or in this case, the scenario planning tool, how they will access it. I can either make it public, meaning anyone in the world can access it. I can make it authenticated, which means the end users, the players who are coming to it, need to log in before they gain access. Or I can make it private, which means only me as the developer or the modeler or author can see it. And I would use the private account when I'm developing something where I'm not yet ready to share it. So I could set it to private, and then later I would switch it to public when it's sort of ready to be released. For this one today, what I'm going to do is start off just having it be public so it can be accessed by anyone. Okay, so now we have our link, our URL for this. And by the way, this doesn't need to be run with a URL that's from Foreo. There's techniques to do this where you could run it on your own website, so it doesn't, doesn't have to be on the Foreo site. That's more, it's not too hard to do, but it's a little bit more than we're going to cover today in the webinar. But there's some information about this available in our support forum on how to do that. But if I go to this right now, of course, there's nothing in it. You get this robot saying the page you're trying to view is not available because obviously we haven't done anything yet, right? We don't have a model or anything like that. We have a model folder here that is empty. You can see here it says no files found. We have an interface folder that is also empty. It says no files found. So what we need to do first is to get our model in there. So obviously we just created this Excel model, right? So what we need to do is get the Excel model into Epicenter, and the way we do that is we drag it in here. So where did I put that model this morning? I thought I put it in here, but I guess I didn't. Okay, so I need to find out where I saved my model. File, save as. No, it says it's in that folder. Maybe it's one level above. That's probably it. Let me go back here. Okay, so let me go up one here. Yeah, I put it up here. There we go. So there's the model. You can see it's saved at 1021. It's 1024 right now where I am. So let me go back here. And now what I need to do is drag this. Dang it. I'm having trouble dragging for some reason. Let me try that again. There we go. There we go. Drag this Excel file into Epicenter. So I'm just dragging it onto the website page, and I drop it, and there now it's uploaded to the folder. And now we have a file in here, and it's this Excel file. And this is the same way we would upload other kinds of content like Python or R and so on. But obviously today we're using Excel. Okay, but we still have the problem where we have nothing in our interface. So we have a model that we can access. We have no interface available. And again, the easy way to proceed is to use this interface builder to design an interface quickly. And that's what we're going to use throughout the rest of our webinar today. So let's go to the interface builder. And what interface builder does is initially it analyzes the type of thing, the thing that you uploaded, and it suggests types of interfaces that could be built based on the model that you've uploaded. And so you need to upload a model first in order to get to this one. You can't start building the interface without a model. But it kind of provides some nice suggestions here. So it's looking at the model we've uploaded, and it's offering 4 examples, which are identical to the 4 examples I shared earlier. We could do a calculator, we could do a run comparison or scenario comparison tool, we can do a multiplayer game or turn-by-turn based game. And as I said, what I want to do is start off by doing a run comparison or scenario tool. So I'm going to click on this, and what it does then is set up a folder for me so I can see what's running here, and it makes some suggestions for design. And I don't have to follow these suggestions if I don't want to, but it provides sort of a nice starting point for someone, again, who's maybe unfamiliar with web design and things like that to kind of get started and create something that's going to be useful. So you can see it says project title up here, and I might change that and say my project title is the electric bike comparison tool or something, or scenario tool planning. I'll just call it scenario planning. I can add an image logo. And if I go to this here, I pre-created a logo here that, oh, actually this one's better, the electric bike icon logo. And you can see here, here's a little picture of a bicycle that I got, and I'm going to put that in my logo now. So, and I can select that to appear on my header. And if I go back to my introduction page, you can see that appear up here. And so here's our nice beginning of our introduction. I can say, welcome to the scenario planning tool, etc. I'll show more of this later, but this is sort of the beginning of it, right? And then it also makes suggestions for different pages that are available here if I want them. So if I go back to pages here, you can see a few that are available, but I can also add additional pages. So I've got different, and the pages that are available vary by the type of sim that you're building. So because we're doing a scenario planning tool, because we selected that earlier on, it knows that there's only certain kinds of things that are going to make sense within this context. So we have a run comparison that we might want to do where we want to show multiple outcomes like we showed in the Vietnam health simulation a moment ago. We might want to do a run analysis where we look at just a single scenario or a single run in more detail. And each one of these things has different pages that are available for it. So here's a run analysis templates that are available. Here's run comparison templates that are available. There's various text pages that I could select from in terms of design. And I even have the ability to extend this to create my own templates if I want to. But again, in the interest of time today, what I'm going to do is just use the default templates that are available. I'm just going to use these that are here. So what I might want to do here for my dashboard is show maybe profit changing over time based on outcome. And you can see here what it's doing is it's saying, well, one of the common things we might want to plot out is graphs that kind of show how things are changing over time based on what's uploaded here. And you can see different types of plots that can be shown. There could be a sensitivity chart, a line chart, or a bar chart. Let's go to the line chart. And maybe one of the things I could show here in my simple model is profit. And now we get to this capability of using the range names that I talked about earlier, where we have this technique that Epicenter uses called model introspection, where it can look inside of your Excel model and look up data variable names here. So here you can see the names of the ranges that we had from our Excel model earlier, and they match up with those range names that we created just a moment ago. And if I start typing profit, for example, I can see the profit range name appear, and the plot now running out from 50,000 on up to 134,250. So let's go back to Excel and compare that. And we can see, sure enough, it starts off at 50,000 and it goes up to 134,250 for our model, which is good. That's obviously what we want to see there. So that's our starting point. And that's all I'm going to plot for this one right now. Then I want to make some decisions. And these are decisions that I want to make that are going to change the different runs that I create for my scenario planning tool. So let me go to decision type here. I'm going to select, in one case, a slider. I'm going to call this my price decision. And then I'm going to go to price decision for my decision point here. And I'll put in a minimum price of $1 and a maximum for my electric bikes. They're kind of inexpensive electric bikes, I guess, for $1,000. And I can even set a number format where I can make it currency or what have you. And I can do other things too, like maybe in this one, you might remember I had set fixed costs and it kind of stays flat the whole time. I could make fixed costs a variable as well. So let me go ahead and do that. And I'll choose my fixed cost variable here. And then I'll set the number format for that. And you can see it's a couple $100,000. And that's kind of enough to get started, all right? So let me go back to the introduction. I'm gonna save what I've created, and I'm gonna go to preview mode. And now I can see the introduction to the simulation. I can go to the dashboard and see my baseline results from the Excel model. And I can do something that's not available in Excel. This is kind of cool, in that the Epicenter stores multiple runs for each of the Excel runs that I'm doing over time. So if I go in here, I change this, I say, I want to charge more for my bicycles. And if you are watching me build this model, you saw me do something with the model that is kind of weird or not probably incorrect, let's put it that way, which is sales grow independent of everything else. So in this model, the more I charge, the better off I'm going to be. So I put in high price as my my scenario name here and save and simulate. What you'll see now is I have a new line, and not surprisingly, the high price line, you know, beats the baseline every time because I'm charging more and things like that over time. So let me go back to this now and go back to my decisions and change this a little bit again. I'm going to leave the high price, but in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have higher fixed costs. I'm going to do this as my high price, high cost scenario. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now I have a third line, which is, you know, coming in here where there's a slightly higher cost and things like that. And if I don't like these, I can go back to the run manager and remove them. Like if I say, you know what, the first one that I created here is one I don't want, I can go back and delete it. And then that one will get removed from my scenario comparison here. And so now it's no longer available. And I can go back to my dashboard and I see, you know, one less line in here than I had before. Okay, so again, because we have a lot to cover, I'm going to move on from this, but there's a lot that you can do with this for creating kind of a scenario comparison tool, and it kind of builds on additional features from Excel to make, you know, multiple runs and things like that. It's almost as if you're running, you know, Excel multiple times, and it's kind of making those results available for comparison for a single user and things. From here, what we want to do is go back to the Sims page, and I want to create another simulation. What we're going to do this time is a turn-based game, and we're going to call this the electric bike game, I guess. And again, what we're going to do is use the same URL. This time, we're going to make it authenticated. So last simulation we built, the scenario tool was public, and if you went to that URL right now, you could look at that sim. It's available for anyone. But this one, we're going to require a login because I want to show some additional features around that. So I'm going to go ahead and create project. And again, we have the URL for it. And again, of course, we start off with nothing in the model folder and nothing in the interface folder. So the first thing we need to do again is put in a model. And I'm going to use the model we just created to extend it a little bit. And when you're building games, often what you want to do is provide your player with some history so that they have some information that they can look at to kind of think about what decisions they should be making going forward. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. I'm going to extend this by saying, let's have 2 years of history in here that I can look at. It'll actually be 3 points here that are available for this step. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as my model with that change, and that's going to help me with my, or help the players who are running this to have some history available in their game. Okay, so now I need to go back and hopefully I have more success. Yeah, this time it worked, good, dragging it in. All right, so there's our model, and now I want to go back, and again, of course, my interface folder is empty. I'm going to go back to building an interface here, and this time, instead of doing run comparison, which we did last time, I'm going to do a turn-by-turn based game. So I click on turn-by-turn, and it looks similar, but it's actually very different than the previous version. First off, we don't have the tool that can manage the scenarios because that doesn't apply here anymore. And if you look at the pages that are available, they're different styles. So these are now output pages, and there's quite a few of them. There's input pages that are available, combination pages, and so forth. So we no longer have kind of the same sets of pages that we saw in the previous version because we're building a very different style of simulation in this case. And again, what I'm going to do in this case is kind of keep it the same. I guess I'll go ahead and change this. This is my electric bike game in this case. I'll use the same image I had before. Because I'm in a new project, there's no images available, so I have to actually re-upload because I'm in a complete new sim, but I'll go ahead and do that quickly. and resize this again. And now we have that image that I can select. And now I have that nice introduction here with the Electric Bike game instead. And I can say, welcome to the game. And I can even add some text here. I actually had some text that I had saved earlier here that I'll use here just to provide. So we can paste this in here. And you can see, so this provides sort of an introduction to the game. And I can, highlight things if I want to. I can make this bold or what have you, and there's some other techniques I can have. And I can even add online media. So if I want to, I can have a YouTube video or other kind of video available, or an image or something like that that appears. So let me go ahead and add a video now. This is the URL for a video that I found online about how e-bikes work. It's a little 2-minute video, so that's going to add a little bit of something to my game. And now I can go to the dashboard. And again, it doesn't have to be just graphs. I could add tables. I could add other kinds of reports. I can, there's a wide variety of things that can be put in here, but I'm going to go ahead in this case and do some graphs again. And you can see there's a different set of chart types that are available for this style of simulation. But what I'm going to use is the line chart again. And in this case, what I'll do is I guess I'll plot out, let's see here, sales. And on this one, so I'll go here with data variables. And again, I'm using model introspection, so it's recognizing that. What I have here are different ways of referring to the ranges or the variables in my Excel model. You can see full range, which is kind of what I used for the scenario planning tool or till current step. If I do full range, you can see what it's doing is it's plotting out sales for the entire time period that I have, which is actually not what I want, because what we want is to go round by round in the simulation, make decisions, and then advance to the next round. So that's what we're doing with this game. If you remember that marketing simulation, that's how it worked. We made some decisions, we hit advance, we saw new results, we made new decisions and kind of revised them each time. So we don't want to actually do a full range in here. Instead, what we want to do is sales until the current step. So if I click on that, what you can see now is I have this history available of sales, and what I'm going to be doing then is making decisions for the next rounds here. All right, so let me go here, and I'm going to also add in profit. And I'm going to select a date available here, and I'm going to do profit, and I'm also going to select until the current step. And you can see it, plotted out here where I have profit in 2021, and it's kind of giving me a history of this. All right, so now what I want to do is go to decisions. And in this case, I'm just going to do a slider decision for the price, like I said. So I'll have price here, or bike price or something. And I'll select the variable, in this case, price decision. And you notice here too, what it's doing is it's saying, because we're doing a turn-based game, it sort of recognizes that we want to look at it at the current step. So we'll make price decision for the current step and set that up. And I'm going to do the format of currency again for that, although I can do different formats if I want. I'll put in a range of prices that can be set for that, so I can slide that. And then when it simulates, what it's going to do is it's going to step once and then save the results and then navigate to the dashboard. And there's actually other things that I can do here if I wanted to. There's sort of other techniques that can be used. I can do reset or save and so forth, but these are things that are kind of helping you kind of set this up easily if you're trying to build something rapidly, or you're just getting started. Okay, so I've got something that will work here. Let me go and look at this and preview it again. I'll save it first and then go to preview. So this is what it looks like in the interface. You can see the introduction, nice title, it's looking pretty good. And one of the other things that the tool does in all of these different interfaces that we're sharing with you today is work with what's called responsive design. And responsive design means that the interface will work on mobile, on tablet, and on desktop. I'm using a desktop right now. But if I go to the mobile design, you can see it's laid out in a way where it kind of does some nice, makes some good decisions around how this would look in mobile. So I'm looking on this on my smartphone, it would work. And I have this little hamburger menu where I can navigate through to look at different pages and things like that. And it's kind of making good decisions around how to lay that out. And if I go to the tablet-based view, it's also looks reasonable. And then the desktop view, which I'm currently using, looks good as well and gives me a little bit more room for making decisions and things. Okay, so right now the sim is, we're playing it and it's advanced to 2021. And what I want to show you is a problem that I intentionally put in my simulation in the design that often happens when people are building turn-based games. So if I go to decisions here and let's say I lower my price to 400 or so, right? There we go, 400 exactly. So I haven't hit simulate yet, but if I go to my dashboard, what you can see is the profit dropped immediately. And I really don't want that to happen. What I want to have happen is the profit to change in the next round. So right now what's happening is, and you can see this in my model, let me go to my model here. If I'm in, let's see, I think I'm in 2021 right now, and I change my price decision from 500 to 400, what you can see is it immediately affects profit in this year. So it's instantaneously affecting it. What I really want to have happen is it affect profit in the next year, in the year over here. So that's a problem that I have in my model, and you know, that results in kind of changing things in the current year. And what I really want to have happen is I submit my decisions, and then it changes it in the next year. So I'm gonna fix that first, and I think this is a common problem, which is why I wanted to illustrate it with you. So I'm gonna fix that first, and then I'm gonna move on from there to update it here. So let's go to Excel and look at how to repair that or fix that issue that we see here. So we added this in, we had price decision and we had price. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make price decision initially equal to price. Let's see here. Oh yeah, okay, let's put it in this way. So I'll type in 500, I'll make price decision initially equal to price. And then what I wanna do is make price equal to the previous year's price decision. And so now, as I move this across, when I change this number, let's do that. Let's actually do what we did here. When I change the 2021 here with 400, and I enter it, you can see it actually affects it in the next year, and that's exactly what I want. So the way that you correct for this is by having a reporting variable for price that references the previous year's or previous period's price decision, right? So let's go ahead and put this back in the way we had it before, where it references. So that's it. So now I'm going to go ahead and save my model. This is my new model. And now what I need to do is go back to my model and upload the interface here for it. So let me go ahead and do that. This is my model that I just updated. And I'm going to add it here again. So now it has the new time on it from just right now. And if I go back to my interface builder and put this in preview mode, I should have it corrected now, where if I enter my decisions and I change this to something and then simulate, you can see it now affected it in the next year. So 2021 stayed on that trajectory and went up. I should have probably gone the other direction, down like I did the previous one, but you sort of get the idea, where now that's kind of doing what I want it to do in terms of decisions. And this is how a turn-by-turn based game is built. There's some other nice features that are available in turn-by-turn based games that are useful for facilitators, because a big part of a game generally is that you have someone who's facilitating it with a group of players. You know, it's used for training, for example. And we have a facilitator interface that's available here, where you can look at class results, class settings, view users, etc. So we're not going to build out too much of this today in the interest of time, but I think we'll use this a little bit more when we get to the multiplayer game, which is what I'm going to do now, because we have about 17 minutes left in our webinar today to kind of illustrate that piece of it. So let's go back to Sims. And what we're going to do is create a new project again. So our third project of the day, we're going to do multiplayer electric bike company. All right, so there it is. There's our new URL. We're also going to use authenticated, which we need to do for multiplayer, because as we saw in the previous example, when I was showing the pricing game, we need to have 2 people log in to be able to compare results. So let me go ahead and create this project. And now we have our new URL, and we need to get a new model in here. And what I've done is I've got a model that I pre-made, because I knew we were going to run out of time for this. So here's our model. It looks actually very similar to our previous model, except that now what we've done is we have A and B at the end of it. So we have price decision A and B. We have price A and B. The price is referencing correctly. It's referencing the previous column. So this is all set up properly, and I added some logic for attractiveness and things like that. But basically, this is the same model. It's just repeating 2 players instead. You can see down here we have step and demand elasticity. And what I need to do with this is just name the ranges like I did before. So let me go ahead and set create named range for the left column. And then I'm going to do that down here with demand elasticity and step. And you can see there can be more than just step that can be referenced. You can also have sort of things that a facilitator would control for every player in the class, like demand elasticity in this case, that can be set up. And actually, let me make this, well, one's fine. We'll just keep it there. All right, so we'll do that, and then we'll do name, create range, left column, and you can see this one now is named demand elasticity, and this one is named step. So we've got our model. Let me just go ahead and save that as multiplayer base, I guess. So now I need to upload that model, and I need to go up one, I think, here. No, I need to go here. There you go. Okay, so let me drag in multiplayer base, and I've got my model in now, my multiplayer model, which is identical to the other models, except it has, again, just has this A and B at the end for the to reference the different players. And again, it doesn't have to be 2-player, it could be more than 2, but that's what I have in here right now. I still need to build an interface. And so now I'm going to my third option here, which is multiplayer. So I'm going to click on multiplayer. And what it does right away is it changes some project settings to make multiplayer active. This is a bit more sophisticated, and what it does is open a push channel so that results will update instantaneously, and it also knows when people, even if they're across the world or something playing this together, they'll know when both people have submitted, the way that we saw in that earlier game. So I'll go ahead and hit continue, and now it's asking me for what roles we have in our project. And roles can be defined in Excel as kind of the end of the name of a variable or the beginning of a name of a variable. And what I chose for today was to use the end. So we see here A and B as the end, and we can reference those independently. So what I'm going to do here is separate my players by A and B. So I'm just telling Epicenter how I went about naming the different players in my multiplayer game. Okay, so I'm going to save and continue. And now what you can see up here is I have different views for A and B that are available where I can flip back and forth between them. And I can go ahead again and do the settings here. I'm going to say, multiplayer game. I'm not going to do all the stuff I did before. You've seen a little bit of that. There's more that's here as well for that. But so here's my multiplayer game. I can see that at the top. And I want to have a dashboard where I want to say maybe look at my profit. Let's look at my profit first. So I'm going to say this is my profit. But you notice here that what we want to do is we want to show this page, and it's going to depend on the player who logs in. So when I say my profit, I want it to be the player A's profit when player A logs in, and I want it to be player B's profit when player B logs in, right? So I want to be able to show both of those. And the way I can do that is if I look up profit here, you can see a range of different approaches for entering profit. So I could do kind of the basic thing where I could say show A, but the problem if I did that is that if I showed A, then when B logs in, they'll see A's profit, which is not what we want. So the way we solve for that is we look at it profit by user role. And what it does then is it substitutes that A or B at the end of the variable name, and then it can reference either one of them. So when I'm logged in as A, it's going to show profit for A, and we don't see that in the designer pages here. And then I might also want to show a pie chart where I show, say, market share and how that's changing over time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll show market share, which I have in my game. In this case, actually, because I want to show both A and B, I don't want to use the user role piece of it, but instead what I want to do is show A at the current step, and then I want to add another variable, which is market share for B at the current step. And there that is. Okay, so I've got that, and I'm going to say this one is player A, and this one is going to be player B. Just do it that way. Okay, there we go. So that's all I'm going to do for now in this. Now I'm going to set decisions, and in this case, again, I want player A to make the player A decision and player B to make player B decision. So I'm going to again use the slider here, and I'll say this is price. And I'm going to select a variable. I'm going to do the price decision. But in this case, notice what I'm selecting instead is price decision user role for the current step. And if I do that, then depending on how I'm logged in, it's going to vary that. And I can put in currency for that, and I'll set this up the same way I have in the other ones. And then finally, what I have here is I want to update the simulate button. And what I want to have happen here, unlike the other ones, I want it to step like I did in the previous one, but I want to require consensus, meaning that both players need to submit their decisions before it advances to the next round. So that's now turned on, and I can save that, and I'm ready to test out my game. But before I do that, what I need to do is create some players that need to log in to be able to access the simulation. So let me go to my project homepage. And then what I can do is use this additional feature that I haven't shown yet called groups. If I click on groups, I can create a new group, and this would be like a workshop or a class of students or something like that. And I'll say this is my webinar example, and I can put in name and things like that. That'll have a start date for that group and an expiration, which is 6 months from now. I could expire it tomorrow, I could expire next week. If I don't want to ever expire it, I could take this out entirely, but I'll just leave it where it is right now. And then this is a way of controlling subscriptions too. A lot of people use this when they're reselling the interface or access or subscriptions to the interface that they've created. This is sort of a way to control that. So I'll create the group, and then what I need to do is add end users to my group. And I have 3 different ways of adding end users. I can invite them directly just by typing it in here. I can upload multiple end users, and I can also allow end users to self-register. That's sort of a nice feature sometimes when you don't know who's going to be registering for something. That sort of follows a process where they can click on a URL, and you can see this here. I'll just show this to you quickly. A registration URL. They enter their information, and then they kind of automatically become a member of that group if you want them to. But what I want to do today actually is something different. What I want to do is upload templates here. So the way I would do that is I download a template. So I downloaded a template here. Let me go ahead and open that up. So there's my template. And I'm going to put in my name here. I'm going to put Michael for one. I'm going to say my username here is player001, and I'll make the password the same here. And then I'm going to do Amrita, and then I'll do player002, and I'll make the password the same. Okay, so those are my users, and let me go ahead and save that, and I'll save that to my desktop here. I'll just keep the name end user template, and then I go back here and I upload users, and now if I go to my desktop and go to end user template and open it, it is confirming that these people are already here. Actually, I did this earlier, so I want to overwrite and add to group. I used the same names I did when I was testing this morning. But anyway, they're both in here now, and their passwords available. And I can go back to the group list now and see that they're assigned. Now, these people are now members of my group. They're members of my class. But what I also need to do is provide multiplayer assignments. I want to say who is doing what within my game. So right now, there's no one assigned, but I can do an auto assignment, and I can kind of specify the number that are going to be assigned to teams here. So I'm going to just go ahead and press assignment here. And then what happens is we create one world because we only have 2 players. It's Michael and Amrita that are assigned. Michael's assigned to role B, and Amrita's assigned to role A. And that should be enough to get started here. So let me go to running this project. I'm going to copy the link address, and I'm going to go back to my other rounds here, kind of creating the same thing we did a moment ago. Let me go to this one, and I'm going to copy this, and then go to player B. So this is like the other player here. Okay, and now I'll go back to A. I'm going to log in, and I think I said player001 was my name. And I use the same password. So let me log in. Okay, so player 1's now logged in. Let me go to the other person. I'll go to player 2 here. Oops, player 2. And log in. So now we're both logged in, and we can see the dashboard. I'm now looking at the dashboard for player 2. Here I'm looking at the dashboard for player 1, as you can see up here. I'm going to make decisions as player 1. And the pricing here is very different than before. It's not the 500 anymore. This is a different model. But let me set it at 24, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and hit simulate. And now notice what's different about this. It's saying waiting for other players to submit. So Michael has submitted as player B, but Amrita for player A has not yet submitted. So let me go to player to Amrita here. And I'm going to go ahead and go to decisions here. And she set it. I'm going to keep hers at 10, and we'll submit. And then we kind of see the outcome. And as you can see, Michael, player 2, or player 1 rather, increased his price by a lot, whereas Amrita kept the price that she had, and as a consequence, Amrita got the majority of the market share, and her profits went way up. If I look at the results for Michael here, actually his profits went up too. That's interesting. It depends a little bit on the tuning of this model, right? Because profits were, even though sales went down, they were compensated for by the profits. That's kind of how I tuned this model, I guess. And then I could do other things with this if I wanted to. Again, just to go back to the setup of this thing with the interface builder, I can also create here the facilitator interface, and I have new features here where I can look at class results if I have them available, monitor teams, class settings, and things like that. And to access those things, what I would need to do is to create a facilitator for my group. So let me quickly do that. Multiplayer Electric Bike Company. So I have my group here. I'm going to go to the webinar group. I'm going to add a new end user, and I'm going to call this person, let's see what I should call them. I'm going to call them Multiplayer FAC 1. Okay. And I'm going to say this person's name is Michael Bean, my name. And I'll set a password. I'm going to say yes to facilitator. So this person's a facilitator, create a group here. And now what I'll do is I'll go to another, I get the URL here, just a minute. I'll go to another, no, that's not what I wanted. Let's see, where were we? There we go. Copy this, then go here, paste this in, go here. Let's see, now go here, and I need to get the name of the username here. And I'm gonna log in with that username. And now I can kind of see, the setup of this. I can see the class results. Here are the two people who are playing. I can monitor current teams that are on there. They're both offline right now because I turned that off. I can do class settings if I want. I can assign roles, although people are already assigned. So this lets, facilitators who aren't authors to kind of build these things up. All right, so that was a lot to cover quickly. I hope you got saw some kind of overview of a wide range of things that can be done with the platform. The last thing I want to just emphasize with you, if you're building this on your own and trying this after the webinar today, is that you should name ranges in your Excel spreadsheet and to reference them easily in your interface. And we've seen that now multiple times for how you name ranges in your interface. The other thing that I didn't emphasize, but I think is important, if you're doing a time-based simulation, and all three of the examples we use today are time-based, there are a couple of reserved range names that you need to use. One of them is a time range, and the other one is step. So let's go back to our Excel model here and just see that one more time. So this one was named time, and Epicenter recognizes this as what we're going to be using for the column-based time settings for this. And then step we've seen as well, which is going to advance it for multiple times. You need to put both of those in for these time-based simulations. If you're doing a calculator, you don't need to, but for the time-based simulations, which all three of them were today that we built, you need to include that. All right, just other resources that are available. We have a support forum. We have an online reference guide, and we have webinars, of course, which we're running right now. Just to illustrate the support forum quickly, if you have questions, you can click on support at the upper right section of Epicenter, and you can see this support forum where you can ask questions and things like that. Actually, someone recently was asking about uploading things to Excel, and then there's also a documentation guide that's available up here. If you click on this link, it's going to give you information on documentation and talks about different approaches for building models in different languages like we've talked about today. All right, we have a couple minutes left. Amrita, are there any questions that people had today that we should try to answer in the next 2 minutes?
So will there be a video available for download of this webinar?
Yeah, so the question is, will there be a video available for download of this webinar today? And yes, we'll be saving this, and it'll take us 2 or 3 hours to get this ready, but then we'll send it, and we'll be sending it out to everyone who's participated in this webinar today.
If working with a high production team, is it still possible to edit screens via the interface builder?
So the question is, if you're working with a high production team, is it still possible to edit the interface screens with Interface Builder? Well, yes, you can if you use the Interface Builder to build those screens, but you don't necessarily have to. So, like here at Foreo, we have a team of web developers, and they prefer to use HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and they also use a library that's pretty common among web developers called React, but there's other ones that are common too, like jQuery, pardon me, or Angular. And so they tend to prefer to use those libraries. But if you don't want to do that, you could just ask your web developers to use the UI developer tools.
What's the difference between free accounts and the public accounts and how much it costs?
The question is, what are the differences between the free accounts and the 4 pay accounts in Epicenter, and how much are they? So let me illustrate that quickly within the tool. So there are free accounts available, and those are called personal projects. So when I go to create a personal project, and again, this is a free account, you see it looks very similar to what we had before, but notice what's missing down here. Let me just turn this on with my highlighter, I think. So here, you can see under access is only public and private. So you can't do authenticated in the free account. You can only do you can only do public and private in the free account. So that's really the main difference. There's also limits in terms of the model size and things like that. Sometimes people run against that, but we offer a fairly large model size for Excel for the free accounts and things. In terms of pricing, that is all available on our website. So if you go to Foreo.com and then go to products and then go to Epicenter, you'll see at the bottom of the page it says pricing, and you can click on that and it'll kind of give the pricing options here. You can see it ranges from 0, which is the free account, obviously, to $477 up to around $10,000, and there's even enterprise options that are available. And what really varies by these account sizes is the number of SIMs that you can host and the number of end users you can have that work with it. So here, for the $477 per year, you can have 1 simulation that's hosted, that's authenticated, meaning users log in, and up to 40 end users. In the larger account here, this $10,000 or $977 account, you can have a large number of projects, up to 25, and you can have up to 5,000 end users use it. All right, we're just right on the top of the hour here, so I'm gonna call it good. And like I said, we'll be uploading this webinar and make it available. We'll send a link to that to everyone who's on this call today after the webinar. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.